Configuration, field level security. CRM field level security basics. This new feature of CRM 2011 is used to control access to sensitive entity attributes such as Social Security numbers, credit card numbers, and the like. This security is in addition to the role-based security model, and it also addresses all supported access methods to the data. There's no way for a CRM user to get around this security, in other words. Attributes can be configured for field level security, or FLS. When an attribute is configured for security, users cannot see, update, or change that field unless granted explicit permissions. Field security profiles define the permissions to one or more field level security enabled attributes. Enabled fields can be linked with one or more profile. Then user accounts are linked to profiles to grant permissions, much in the same way that security roles are linked to users to grant access to entities. Field level security implications. Enabling field level security on a field enables it to be associated with a field security profile, and it then hides content from all users who do not have permissions to that field. Users without the read permission to a field secured with FLS will not be able to access that value in forms, views, reports, or exports. In other words, this security is pervasive. Including a field in a profile involves defining the specific privileges that a profile will grant to users assigned to that profile. The specific privileges for a secured field associated with a profile are whether or not you can read the field, update the field, or add a new value to the field. Securing an attribute in CRM 2011. First of all, you must customize the attribute to enable field level security. Next, you would create a field security profile. You would link the attributes that you wish to grant access to the profile and select each attribute, then update the create, read, and create options for that attribute within the profile. And lastly, you would associate teams and users with the profile. Field level security demonstration. So now let's take a look at how we would secure a particular field. As with other components of CRM 2011 security, field level security profiles are accessed through settings and administration. However, to enable field level security, we first have to go out to the customizing option. So we're going to go out and customize the system, and in this particular case, we're going to customize a field within the user account entity. So I select entities, users, and fields. Prior to this demonstration, I created a custom field in the user entity called hourly rate. Hourly rate is represented in this list, and the easiest way to find a custom field in an entity is to change the view to custom, which then would show you only the custom attributes within the list. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the new hourly rate attribute, and we have indeed enabled field security right here. This means it will now be eligible to be associated with field security profiles. So now let's go back to the profiles and see how that's implemented. Back to administration and field security profiles. So I would want the payroll manager to have access to this field. So I will open the payroll manager field security profile, which I created earlier for this example. The first thing that we want to take a look at in a field security profile is which field permissions are associated with this profile. In this particular case, what we have is the new hourly rate field is selected and is enabled with read access only. However, what we really want to do for this is we want to modify it because the payroll group needs the ability to update this as well as to enter information in it the first time when the record is created. So we're going to change this profile for the payroll manager to be able to allow read, update, and create access. On the other hand, since this is a contract position, we also want the accounts receivable people to be able to access the field permissions as well. So in this particular case, you'll notice that they have no access. And what we're going to do is we're going to select the hourly rate, double-click it, and we're going to give them allowed read access to this, but not the ability to update or put new values into the field. So at this point, we have two security profiles that access this record. But in order for people to have access to this, we must now assign this profile to a user or a team in much the same way that we would link a security role with users and teams. So I'm going to go take a look and see, do I have a payroll team? No, there's not one specified here. And I do not have an accounts receivable team. So since I know that's going to be an individual user, I'm going to add a specific user to this, in this case, Diane. And Diane will now have read access to this particular attribute on any forms where it is presented. Other users will just see a line of asterisks. Next, we want the payroll manager to be able to update the information. We've taken care of that in our field permissions, but we need to go back and assign users to this as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add myself as the payroll manager. This will be in addition to other access that I have to the user entity that's granted to me through security roles. So again, it's important to remember that field level security is in addition to role-based security and is unnecessary for any users who are not allowed to see an entity in the first place. So for instance, I'm granting access to all users in the system to the user entity because that's the way it's set out of the box. However, I've now restricted a single field within there for restricted access. Diane is able to see the values in the field. I am able to see the values, update values, and create new records with values. All other users in the system will just see a line of asterisks next to that field. CRM 2011 configuration. Auditing. CRM 2011 Auditing Basics. CRM Auditing is a new feature of CRM 2011, which provides a log of changes made to CRM data. Changes to individual records are stored in the Audit History, which is accessible via each entity form for a specific record. All audit events are also stored in the Audit Summary, which is accessible from Settings and Auditing. Be aware that auditing does not track access to CRM, nor does it track when someone reads a record. It only tracks changes to CRM. Auditing information is stored in the Audit Partitions table in the organization database. SQL Enterprise version allows partitions to be spread over logical storage devices, thus giving you the ability to partition your data in ways to decrease the impact of auditing on high-use systems. And CRM is smart enough to recognize when you're running SQL Enterprise and automatically configures for this. That being said, auditing can impact performance because there is an increase in I/O to write the logs. So consider what kind of auditing is necessary rather than using an all or nothing approach, especially if you're starting to note performance issues. Auditing and security implications. The CRM Administrator and System Customizer have full authority by default in CRM. They're able to enable and disable auditing for the organization. They're able to configure entity and attribute auditing options, manage audit partitions, review the audit summary and audit history. Managers, on the other hand, can see the audit history by default, but they can be granted more access via security roles should you deem it necessary. Non-managers have no access to audit information by default, but it can be granted via security roles. Since they are granted no access to even reading audit information, then the audit entity will not appear in any of their menus unless they are granted that access via their security roles. Enabling auditing in CRM 2011. Auditing is not enabled by default, and out of the box, only the CRM Administrator and System Customizer can enable it. Enabling auditing is a three-step process. First, you need to enable it for the entire organization. Then you can choose to enable or disable auditing for specific entities and/or entity groups. And lastly, you want to enable or disable individual attributes. So let's take a moment to look at how we enable auditing within a CRM installation. In CRM 2011, auditing is deemed important enough to warrant its own menu option in the settings. So we click on Settings and then go to Auditing. And to enable CRM auditing, we first go to Global Audit Settings. And this is where we can start or stop auditing and enable auditing in the following areas: in all common entities, sales entities, marketing entities, and such. If you'll notice, this is actually a tab on the System Setting menu. In this particular case, we have already enabled auditing, but I can also disable auditing by simply clicking here. Now, if I choose to disable auditing, some audit history may be lost, and it is asking me if I want to continue. I'll cancel on this, but let me take a moment to explain. If I turn off auditing and then turn it on a month later, then the system is not going to be able to record any of the changes that took place during the period of time that auditing was off, and therefore will not have values to know what the old values were. So keep in mind that disabling auditing for a period of time can cause significant data loss in your system from an auditing perspective. That is to say, I will not have data in my audit logs. I am not implying that it causes problems with data loss in other areas. It just means that you will not be capturing as much auditing information as you might otherwise. So I will cancel from this. The next place to look at auditing is to go in entity by entity. That's done under Customizations. So I can go and customize the system. I can drill down to a specific entity. In this particular case, we'll select the case entity. Now, if we look at an entity within the CRM customization interface, one of our options under Data Services is Auditing. If I want to track changes to cases, the first thing that I would want to do is to enable auditing for the case. So I enable auditing and click Save. This causes an update to the entity to take place, and now any attributes that are flagged for auditing within this entity will start flagging changes in the audit logs. So let's go take a look at some of the fields. If we look at a list of attributes within an entity, one of the columns that we see is the Audit Status. And as you can see, a number of these are enabled, as is here. However, there are also some that are flagged as non-applicable. These are because these are fields that are maintained by the system, and therefore we have no control over changing. Because of that, CRM does not give us the ability to audit these particular data elements. If we drill down, let's pick a particular field that we would like to track. Severity code would be an obvious one that I would want to make sure that I track changes to, because if somebody's making changes to severity codes, I want to be able to go back and review that. In this particular case, it's already enabled. And if we look at it, if we go through this entity, pretty much all the fields in the entity, except for those that are not applicable, are enabled. So then my question would be, is there any information in this that we would prefer not to audit? Well, there could be a number of things, but we'll let that go for now. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the impact of auditing will cause. First of all, let's take a quick look at the attribute itself so that you can see where you enable and disable attribute auditing. And it's very simple. We can turn it on or off by just enabling or disabling. In this particular case, since it's already enabled, I don't wish to change that. So we will save and close, and we will publish all customizations just to make sure. So now I have moved to the case entity in my demo environment so that we can go and take a case and make some changes and see what that causes in the way of auditing. So we'll open this particular case record, and we'll take a look at the audit history. So as you can see, that audit was enabled a little while ago, and that means that any changes to this entity will now be logged. And so if I make changes to a particular record, then the audit history will be related to that record. And this is a very powerful thing for a manager to be able to go back and do a review of changes made to a record. So in this particular case, we're going to change the priority to high, and we're going to change the satisfaction level to very dissatisfied, and we'll do a save. Now I'll make another change. This is a request, not a problem, and do another save. And then finally, we'll change very dissatisfied to dissatisfied. So now, if we look at the audit history, we now have some additional records that are stored in the database from when we looked at it momentarily ago. So at this point, I'm able to see in any given record, if I want to drill into it, the name of the field that was changed, the old value that was there, and the new value that was changed. So we changed priority. The old value was from normal to high, and satisfaction was changed from satisfied to very dissatisfied, and so on. I don't really need to drill down to be able to see this information. It shows up in the list. And so, if you'll notice, I know when it was changed. I know whom it was changed by. I know what event took place to do this. And I know specifically which records were changed. This is sorted, if you'll notice, in descending order by time, which means that basically all of the most recent changes will be at the top, and I can read my way down through older and older changes.